You're listening to The Head Trash Show with me, Alexia Leachman, author of Clear Your Head Trash. Head Trash is the home to the Head Trash clearance method, which you can use to get rid of the fears, stresses and anxieties in your life. Every week I'll be sharing insights, stories and interviews to inspire you to clear your head trash so that you can find calmness, confidence and clarity in your life and work. To find out more about clearing head trash and creating a headspace, head over to clearyourheadtrash.com. And now for today's show. Hello and welcome back to The Head Trash Show. My name is Alexia Leachman. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now today I want to talk about public speaking and the fear of public speaking. Now, apparently it is the number one fear that people have. I've also heard that fear of being sick or vomiting is also number one fear. So who knows what's number one, but it's definitely in the top 5. Now it's not surprising because there's a primal brain reason for that. We can definitely point back to caveman days, as we often can when it comes to fear and anxiety. But what I want to talk about today is the fact that not all presenting or public speaking is equal in terms of its potential to make us nervous, fearful or anxious. And it's going to be different for everyone. You know, when you think about speaking in front of a large audience of people you don't know, that probably sits right up there at the top of the scary pile of things for people to do, right? And this is because, you know, having lots of eyes looking at you is what taps into this primal brain, you know, in terms of how we used to live and survive, you know, because back in those caveman days, if you could look out and see loads of eyes looking at you, then it's probably because you were being eyed up for dinner, which in those days was a very bad situation indeed, and probably meant that you were facing death. So obviously a very good reason for your anxiety and fear to kick in. But today, when we have lots of eyes on us, it's usually because the eyes belong to people that are interested in what we've got to say. They've looked our way because we're saying something interesting, hopefully. And they're at least sort of interested in finding out a little bit more or staying looking at us to see what we're going to do next. And so in situations like this, the fear and anxiety that is wired in from our primal days is not that helpful. So today, it's pretty useful to be able to get rid of that fear. Now, if you want to get rid of the fear of public speaking, I think it's useful to dig a little bit deeper. And that's because it can give us some clues as to what it is that it's the root of your fear or anxiety. Now, this is especially so if you want to use head trash clearance to get rid of your fears or anxiety. Now, for those people that listen to this podcast, you'll know what head trash clearance is. And for those that don't, let me just give you a little quick reminder. It's a very potent technique for getting rid of fears and anxieties and conflicts. And you can find out how to do it in my book, Clear Your Head Trash. There's lots of information on the website, clearyourheadtrash.com. And when you're using the head trash clearance method, what you need a head trash clearance to-do list, which is basically a list of things that you're going to clear in order. It's just like any other to-do list that you just tick off one by one. Now, in order to put things on your to-do list, you need to really kind of unravel a little bit what's going on. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to unravel the fears and anxieties that people have around public speaking so that you can get a better idea as to what's going on for you and therefore crack on and clear your fear of public speaking. So are you ready? So the different aspects of public speaking fear. The first thing I think that we need to explore is the idea that not all public speaking and presenting scenarios are the same. Now we know this, don't we? We do know this. But we just need to kind of remind ourselves that we know this and take a closer look. So once we recognise this, we can start to get to the bottom of it. So let's just consider these different situations. So you've got speaking to a small group of your peers at work. So this might be your team, for example. Now, there might be 8 people that you know really well. You work in day out with them. And so the idea of speaking in front of them might be absolutely fine for you, no problem whatsoever. Whereas other people are going to feel a little bit overwhelmed speaking to their peers because they're going to be worried about being judged or what people think or if they said the right thing and all that kind of thing. Then you've got presenting to people more senior than you, again in the work context. So this is going to be maybe people like the management team or the board of the company or the investors or the stakeholders or the shareholders or, you know, people that you perceive to have power over you or authority over you. Then this can really sort of make people feel overwhelmed or fearful when they're speaking to people like that. Then you've got speaking to a small group of people that you don't know. So this could be, again, in a work context, it might be clients, suppliers, or people in other departments. Any of those situations could mean that you're speaking in front of a small group of people that you don't know. Then you've got presenting to a large group of people who know you. So this, again, at work, or maybe at, if you do a hobby and you're speaking in front of all your class, there's going to be situations where you're going to be presenting to a large group of people who do know you. And this is different to the small group of people who know you, because now there's lots of them. Some people are okay speaking in front of 8 people, but now speaking in front of 30 people, and it becomes a different thing, right? And then there's doing a presentation in front of a large group of people who don't know you. So this could be, again, in a work context, could be, let's say if you're at a conference, you're keynoting at a conference, or you're visiting a subsidiary, another company, or you're visiting suppliers or clients, whatever it is, you're now presenting something in front of a large group of people. So all of these are quite different. It's whether you know people or not, whether there's a large number of them or not, whether they're equal to you or not. All of these things are playing out and affecting you in terms of how you feel speaking up in front of them. Because some of these situations, I would imagine, will not create a problem for you, whereas others will. Maybe you're fine speaking in front of people you don't know, because the idea that they don't know you and, you're not going to, if they think anything of you, you're never going to see them again, you don't care, you're just not bothered. For you, it could be that it's speaking in front of people that you do know that's the problem, because you know them and they're like, what are they going to say? And are they going to say something to me afterwards? And what if I say the wrong thing? Then they're going to, judge me, think this of me. And is it going to make them think more of me, less of me? And there's all this stuff going on. Or maybe you struggle with authority and you're easily intimidated because, when you've got to communicate with people who you perceive to hold more power over you or more authority over you, then this is what makes you nervous and anxious, and so now you stop thinking straight, or you're not able to perform as well, you don't remember your words, you kind of mumble a bit, your voice is shaky, you get sweaty, your mouth goes dry, all those things that we're familiar with as public speakers. And maybe the thing that triggers that in you is the authority piece, is the people that you perceive to have more power than you. Or maybe you're fine speaking to small groups and it's the large groups that make you nervous. So you've got this, there's these differences that exist in these possible speaking scenarios is what begins to suggest to us as to what's actually at the root of your fear. Because if we're going to dig a little bit deeper behind all of these situations, there are very different fears and anxieties at play. Because it's less about the speaking per se, and it's more about what these situations are bringing up for you, i.e. in the person doing the speaking, than the speaking itself. So all of those situations I've just described to you could bring up any of the following, right? So you've got this fear of looking silly or sounding silly or foolish, fear of saying the wrong thing and messing things up, or people thinking less of you, or maybe not being taken seriously, or maybe you're worried about looking stupid or sounding like an idiot, or maybe you're worried about being fired or demoted because you've done such a bad job, because you've forgotten what you're going to say, or you've come across badly, or whatever it is. Or maybe you're worried about missing out on a promotion because you didn't perform as well as you could have done doing the presentation that you've spent weeks rehearsing. There's a fear of appearing like a fraud, where you're maybe speaking at a conference and you've got imposter syndrome kicking in, and you think that who am I to be speaking at this conference when there are other people that have written 10 books on the topic and and you've got the whole imposter syndrome thing going on. Maybe you're worried that you're just not an expert enough and you're not knowledgeable enough, and you really, why are you standing here at the front talking to people about this topic? Because when you think about all of those fears that people have, none of this is about the speaking per se. It's all about these other fears that are lurking beneath the surface. But the thing is, this is not the only thing that we need to consider if we want to get rid of fears around public speaking or presenting, because we actually need to go one step further to get a much more fuller picture. We also need to look at the nature of the presenting job. And so what do I mean by this? And I think it's really important to think about the two main options that you face when it comes to presenting or public speaking. The first option is this one. You've prepared something quite specific that you're going to share. So in this situation, you've maybe prepared a presentation, or you've got, there's an agenda that you've been following and there are certain points that you're expected to speak on. So in the work context, Then there's a specific internal presentation. Maybe there's a monthly team update, and you know exactly what you're going to say because you've prepared, you spent a day preparing for this, and you know what you're going to say. Maybe there's a keynote presentation at a conference. You know, you've got your talk that you deliver time and time again, and it's something that you've been hired to deliver. And that's what you're going to be sharing. Maybe you're pitching, it's a sales pitch. Maybe you're pitching to investors or you're pitching to potential clients, you know, on the service, the product of your company. So in all of these situations, you have got time to prepare and run through what you want to say. The chances are you've prepared some kind of document like a PowerPoint or a keynote presentation, and you've spent time practicing, you've done your research, you've got all the things. So some of the things that might be worrying you around something like that is whether or not you remember to say all the right points, whether you say the things that you wanted to do, that you stick to the time, that you don't fluff your words. These are going to be some of the things that might be going through your mind when you're thinking about a presentation that you've kind of prepared in advance. Obviously, there's a little bit more than that going on, but you get my point. But it's quite different to the next situation where you are speaking, but it's unscripted or on the fly. So this could be where maybe you're attending an event or a meeting and where you're not there to present something specific that's been prepared in advance, but instead you could be potentially hosting a conference or a panel. You've been invited to attend and there are going to be lots of speakers and you're one of the panel speakers, for example. Maybe you're attending a monthly team meeting and you'll need to kind of speak up in response to what else is being shared in the meeting or discussed. So you just need to kind of pipe up when you've got something to say. Or maybe you're an audience member at an event and you want to contribute. There's a Q&A session at the end. And you've got questions for the panel or the speaker and you want to put your hand up and ask something. So in these situations, you don't have anything prepared to say, right? And so it's much harder to prepare. And there's so much more that can go wrong, at least in your mind, right? So when you look at these two different presenting scenario options and the different types of situations that you're facing in terms of whether it's peers, whether it's a large number, small number, people you do know, people you don't know, people in authority, all of that kind of thing that I've shared earlier. And then, when you put all that together, it means that you could be facing at least 10 different potential scenarios in terms of public speaking. And so each of these scenarios could be bringing up slightly different fears and emotional responses in you. So when you think about getting rid of your fear of public speaking, it's a really good idea to get a handle on which of these 10, and there might be more obviously, but which of these 10 are a problem for you. And therefore, what are the fears and anxieties that are behind that make these situations a problem for you? Because often when it comes to clearing our fears and anxieties, it's not the thing per se that's the cause of the fear. It's what that thing means for us. Because speaking in front of people that we don't know means that we might get judged, means that people might not like us, means that people might think we're stupid. And that's what we got the problem with, not the speaking, right? So this is why it's interesting and important to dig in at this level so that you can start really knocking this stuff on the head. And it's actually really important to knock this stuff on the head because often these emotional responses could be so great that you're not even able to practically prepare for what you're facing. And this is really common. This is where I usually get brought in to help people to prepare for their keynote, or they're running a conference, or they're really wanting to be more visible. And speaking is a very obvious way to go about doing that. But if you're fraught with anxiety and you can't sleep the night, because you keep worrying about preparing for this keynote or this conference, whatever it is that you're doing, then you're not going to be able to prepare and do such a great job. I have had people that have been like this, where they've literally not been able to sleep because they've been thinking about the conference, but because this fear and anxiety has come over them, they've not been able to just think through and do the preparation because that's just been too much for them to deal with. The fear has just blocked them from even thinking about it and doing anything practical. And that can be a real problem. Because let's say you've got a presentation coming up and every time you think about it, you feel the anxiety rising. This is going to make it really hard for you to prepare, right? So things like writing the presentation, working with your colleagues together, support and help, or practically planning for the event, whether or not you've got to book a hotel or I don't know what, whatever is going on practically for you in terms of doing it. And then rehearsing the presentation. If you can't even get around to writing it, because even thinking about it gets you anxious, you're never going to get around to rehearsing it, which means when you finally get around to doing it on the day, it's going to be crap and you're going to be rubbish and all of your fears are going to come true. So the best thing to do is to kind of acknowledge how you're feeling early on and give yourself enough time to get all the clearance work done. And it might not be that much actually, so that you can crack on with doing your prep and then do a stellar job and look amazing. So, if you take time in advance to unravel what's going on, then you're going to be much better placed to do the emotional work, because then that in turn is going to help you to prepare for the presenting or the public speaking job that you're facing, right? And then you can look forward to the event with confidence, because then you know that you're going to be doing a really great job and you've done the best that you can. There's nothing worse than thinking, I could have done better than that. I know I can do better than that. Whereas if you go ahead and do something and you come out the other end thinking, well, if it didn't work out well, I did my best. Whereas if you come out the other end thinking, it didn't work out well, but I'm sure I could have done much better, that's going to eat at you forever, isn't it? Well, maybe not forever, but it's definitely going to eat at you for a while. And the confidence that comes from having done the clearance work and then show up will just show in your energy, in your delivery, in your performance. And then any mistakes that you do make will just get masked by the sheer presence of your charisma and energy and confidence. And this is why I think it's worth preparing in advance when it comes to your public speaking things. So when it comes to doing the work and trying to figure out what these fears are, some things I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to start tackling this, obviously you need to ask yourself, what is it about this situation I'm facing with public speaking that I need, what is it about this that's making me fearful? What is it about this that's making me anxious? Is it fear of looking silly? Is it fear of saying the wrong thing? Fear of messing up? People thinking less of me? Not being taken seriously? So all those things could be things that you need to work on using head trash clearance, for example. So your list would look like, being incompetent, looking like an idiot, sounding silly, missing out, appearing like a fraud. These are the kind of things that you would be working that would appear on your head trash clearance to-do list. So I hope that this has been a helpful episode for those of you facing public speaking situations that are causing a little bit of anxiety or fear in you. And I hope that what you've learned in this episode is going to help you to clear any fears you have that are lurking and that might have a chance of getting in the way of you doing an amazing delivery and performance. If you have any questions on anything you've heard today, don't hesitate to get in touch with me at the website at clearyourheadtrash.com. And don't forget, if you want to get hold of the head trash clearance method, it's in the book Clear Your Head Trash, which you can find in all the usual online places and on the website. Okay, until next time, bye for now. Thanks for tuning in. You've just been listening to me, Alexia Leishman, here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show or the book, Clear Your Head Trash, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review on iTunes or Amazon. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes for more insights, interviews and inspiration for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time, bye for now.